In October 1962, the world stood on the precipice of nuclear oblivion as the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a high-stakes standoff. This crisis remains the definitive lesson in how miscalculation can trigger global catastrophe. The Caribbean island of Cuba, situated just 90 miles from the Florida coast, became the epicenter of a geopolitical earthquake that threatened to incinerate over 200 million people across the Northern Hemisphere during the height of the Cold War. Before the 1962 crisis, Cuba had been a Spanish colony for centuries, gaining formal independence in 1902, though it remained under heavy American economic and political influence until the revolutionary shift that occurred in the late 1950s. The failed 1961 CIA-backed Bay of Pigs invasion served as a critical catalyst, driving Fidel Castro to seek a defensive military alliance with the Soviet Union to prevent future American attempts to overthrow his revolutionary socialist government. By July 1962, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev and Cuban Premier Fidel Castro secretly reached an agreement to station Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba, intending to deter future American invasions and achieve a new strategic balance of power. On October 14, 1962, a US U-2 spy plane captured high-altitude photographic evidence of medium-range and intermediate-range ballistic missile sites under construction, forcing the Kennedy administration to acknowledge the immediate, existential threat to the American mainland. President John F. Kennedy immediately convened his closest advisors, the Executive Committee of the National Security Council, to weigh options ranging from surgical airstrikes on the missile sites to a full-scale military invasion of the Cuban island. On October 22, 1962, President Kennedy announced a naval quarantine to prevent further Soviet shipments, carefully choosing the term to distinguish the act from a formal blockade, which would have legally constituted an immediate state of war. By October 23, 1962, U.S. warships established a rigid perimeter 800 miles from the Cuban coast, forcing Soviet vessels en route to the island to either slow down or reverse their course to avoid confrontation. The tension peaked on October 27, 1962, when a US U-2 plane was shot down over Cuban territory, while Khrushchev simultaneously sent a letter demanding the removal of American Jupiter missiles from Turkey in exchange for Soviet withdrawal. Behind the scenes, Attorney General Robert Kennedy met secretly with Soviet Ambassador Anatoly Dobrynin, offering a private pledge to remove those Jupiter missiles from Turkey if the Soviets agreed to dismantle their nuclear sites in Cuba immediately. On October 28, 1962, Khrushchev publicly announced the dismantling and removal of Soviet missiles from Cuba, and Kennedy formally committed the United States to a non-invasion pledge, effectively ending the 13-day standoff before nuclear war began. The naval quarantine was officially lifted on November 20, 1962, marking a return to a fragile peace that necessitated the creation of a direct Moscow-Washington hotline to prevent such dangerous miscalculations from occurring in the future. Historians now recognize that while the public deal ended the immediate threat, the secret removal of Jupiter missiles from Turkey and Italy was essential to the resolution, a detail kept hidden from the public for 25 years. The crisis remains a haunting reminder of the dangers inherent in nuclear brinkmanship, highlighting that even in the modern era, diplomatic communication channels are the only barrier between strategic competition and the total destruction of human civilization. The total megatonnage in an initial nuclear exchange could have been approximately 50,000 to 100,000 times greater than that of the Hiroshima bomb, resulting in the deaths of over 200 million people globally. U.S. intelligence initially underestimated the Soviet presence, unaware that over 40,000 combat troops and 35 Luna battlefield nuclear weapons were already stationed on the island, significantly increasing the risk of an accidental or unauthorized launch. Today, the crisis serves as a critical case study in international relations, teaching leaders the necessity of avoiding humiliating retreats for adversaries and the importance of understanding an opponent's perspective to maintain global security and stability. Soviet nuclear warheads actually arrived in Cuba on October 4, 1962, meaning the world was already under a direct nuclear threat for 10 days before the U.S. intelligence community discovered the missile sites on October 14. The legacy of the crisis persists in modern flashpoints like the Strait of Hormuz, where the lessons of 1962 remind us that clear communication, empathy, and restraint are the only reliable tools to prevent unintended nuclear escalation. Fidel Castro was reportedly infuriated by the Soviet decision to withdraw, as he felt betrayed by the unilateral nature of the deal between Khrushchev and Kennedy, which ignored the security concerns of his revolutionary government in Havana. Ultimately, the resolution of the Cuban Missile Crisis proves that even in the darkest moments of the Cold War, rational actors can find a path to de-escalation if they prioritize the survival of humanity over temporary political victory.